we can't just jump to a stage where AI look at the IoT data and then make a decision by themselves. There needs to be a human involved and think about how the data can be applied together with the AI analytics and the work on it. So one scenario that I see is the data is fed into a cloud storage, and the human can actually do a big brainstorming with the AI agent to see, okay, we now have this sensor data, humidity, temperature, and we also have a machine image coming in from the cameras in the street. And we also have a totally different set of data coming in from another partner. Actually, the human can do a chat-based interactions with a Gen AI to think about what can be done with this set of data.
Welcome back to the Industrial IoT Spotlight podcast. I'm your host, Erik Walenza, the CEO of IoT ONE, and our guest today is Kenta Yasukawa, co-founder and CTO of Soracom. Soracom is a global provider of smart IoT connectivity and a technology integration partner with a full suite of tools to help companies accelerate IoT deployment and succeed at scale. In this talk, we discussed why Kenta believes that the industry is getting closer to achieving the true vision for IoT as a cross-domain Internet of Things, rather than its current state as a closed set of multiple company intranets that don't communicate with each other. And the industry will move in this direction by beginning to leverage Gen AI technologies. We then explored Soracom's efforts to incorporate Gen AI into its IoT platform, and in particular, as the glue between people and data on the platform. We also looked at Gen AI use cases beyond natural language interfaces, in particular for data analytics and decision-making. And finally, we discussed the LLM landscape outside of the US and when it's useful to use LLMs that might not be industry leading, but might be suitable for a specific market. If you find these conversations valuable, please leave us a comment and a 5-star review. And if you'd like to share your company's story or recommend a speaker, you can email us at team@iotone.com. Finally, if you have a research, strategy, or innovation initiative that you'd like to discuss, please email me directly at erik.walenza@iotone.com. Thank you. Kenta, thanks for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to this one. I think this is a discussion on a topic that I've been thinking a lot about, and I guess a lot of folks have been thinking about, which is generative AI and the convergence with IoT. Let me ask, how long have you been thinking about this topic? I mean, are we talking about months? Are we talking about years? How long has this been on your radar?
Oh, yeah. When it comes to Gen AI and IoT, I've been thinking about it since when the Gen AI hype has started. Right after ChatGPT, became the hot topic in the industry, we started to think about how we could possibly apply this to IoT and our customers' innovative applications that we have on our platform. When it comes to applying AI in general for IoT, I've been thinking about it since I started to do a journey in IoT. I myself was a researcher back in 2008. That was when I started to work on IoT or connected car, connected home, that type of research project. And I was always thinking, once the devices are connected, there have to be an engine that can put together data and make an educated guess about what's happening based on data and take action. Without that type of enabler, we can't really achieve the true IoT vision where everything is connected and interacts with each other. So I'm super excited about the technology we are seeing today.
And when you think about Gen AI versus maybe the AI that were being used in solutions for Soracom customers before, do you think about it as kind of quite a different framework for how to, what kind of use cases it would apply to, or how it would be integrated into different use cases? Or do you think it's going to follow a lot of similar patterns, just maybe enabling a few, so certainly there are some new use cases, that's for sure. But is it basically following similar patterns in terms of how data is being stored and managed and processed? Or are there significant differences that you have to take into account as you're thinking about how to integrate this into your portfolio?
Yeah, in terms of collecting data and applying AI logic and machine learning logic to it and react to the data and take some actions, that in that sense, it's similar. It's the similar pattern. But Gen AI enables anyone who can actually consider the data and applications. They can think about how they can leverage the data, and they can actually ask questions to Gen AI based engine to come up with some ideas that will lower the barrier to get started on intelligent IoT systems based on data. And also, often, the Gen AI can be considered as a way to interact with the AI over text box, but it can also detect and analyze data coming in as, for example, time series data formatted in CSV, or video or image can be also fed into Gen AI and be recognized and analyzed. So we started to actually look into multimodal data, including sensor data, video, image, and make a analysis based on Gen AI and create a recommendation or suggestions to users. One example we have is what we call Soracom Harvest Data Intelligence. We have a time series data storage that customers can collect data. And by just clicking by a button saying Ask AI, we use Gen AI to look into data and provide insight and trend so that the customers can use that to get insight from the data they are collecting and apply to their applications and businesses. So it's still the early phase, but we started to see more people using AI thanks to Gen AI's easy to get started interface. So the pattern is similar, but the way of applying AI has been changing, and also the barrier to get started is getting lower. That's my view.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a company on the podcast about a month or so ago who was building a database using Gen AI. And the concept was basically that we don't need static data models, or we need non-static data models and non-static databases that are domain specific. And Gen AI can allow you to, in kind of real time, make sense of data, decide how it should be structured to some extent, decide to some extent what's important, what needs to be stored. And there's also a important role for it in how we manage data, not just in, kind of what we as a user experiences, which is making use of the data, asking queries and so forth. But obviously, it's still early stage in terms of figuring out how that will work in practice and at scale. I think what would be useful, Kenta, before we dive too deep into the topic of Gen AI, is to give folks also a bit of a background in terms of what you guys are doing over at Soracom. So you're a provider of IoT connectivity, which can mean a lot of different things. So can you give us a quick overview of what are the platforms that you're working with, what data sources, and where do you fit into that architecture? And I think that will also help people understand where you're approaching this topic of Gen AI from.
Yes, I got too excited and I already went a little deep into Gen AI topic itself. Yes, Soracom, we have been offering IoT smart connectivity by using cellular radio, satellite, and LP1 radio so that everything can be connected to cloud environment where the intelligence sits. And of course, Gen AI can be also another engine we can use to analyze data. So by helping our customers connect data devices to cloud, we can collect more data, which can be the central source for the intelligence. And we can apply machine learning logic, traditional ones, and also Gen AI to analyze them. What makes us unique is, yes, Erik, we are connectivity provider. That's one aspect of our platform. But, when it comes to IoT, connecting devices to network, it's just the first step. There are a bunch of other things to consider. For example, security is one of the top things you have to think of. And also, once the devices are securely connected to cloud, you have to think about how to authenticate each device and how to collect data and store them properly so that you can apply data analytics. And you have to think about how to manage data in remote locations. So there are so many things to consider. So as a IoT smart connectivity provider, we have features to create a private secure network for your devices and your servers so that they can communicate securely. We also have services that enable devices to use, for example, cellular SIM cards or eSIM to authenticate themselves to cloud services such as AWS, Google, and Microsoft Azure in a cloud agnostic way. so that the customers can easily integrate remote devices with cloud services and build a scalable infrastructure for their IoT. So we have connectivity layer at the bottom, and we have those secure network layer services and application integration services so that the customers can focus on their businesses and applications instead of spending a lot of time for solving common heavy liftings such as security, connectivity, device management, etc.
Got you. So I'm sure that you have customers in 50 different industries, but if you look at the majority of your work, what are the big industries or the big use cases for you? Where's the bulk of your focus in terms of, could be industry, could be asset classes, could be types of use cases that are more common?
Sure. We have a wide variety of customers and industries on top of our platform because we are doing horizontal platform play. But certain verticals are evolving faster. One example is oil and gas industry. They have been collecting data from remote locations. We have healthcare and remote patient care type of customers who are growing fast, even especially after COVID. We have customers in smart agriculture space and consumer electronics and virtually everywhere. But certainly interesting segment and fast growing ones are, for example, oil and gas. We have customer called Niche Gas. They have more than 1 million gas meters connected using our connectivity platform and to Amazon Web Services, AWS Cloud.
So I think that gives folks a good understanding of where Soracom is coming from here. Let's go back to the topic of Gen AI now. I don't know if people can pick it up from your accent, but you're from Japan. And I see that Soracom recently established an IoT and Gen AI lab with Matsuo Institute and the Matsuo lab over at the University of Tokyo. Can you give us a bit of background on what that initiative is? What are the objectives of this lab?
Yes, you're right, Erik. I'm from Japan. Right after we started to see the Gen AI and ChatGPT's evolution, we started to think about application of Gen AI to IoT use cases, as I mentioned at the beginning. But at the same time, it's such a new technology. We need to explore a lot of things in parallel. So we started to work with Matsuo Lab at the Tokyo University to establish this Gen AI IoT lab. So what we do is not the pure research projects. We rather engage with customers who are interested in applying Gen AI and AI in general to their IoT data. And we engage those potential customers together with the researcher at Matsuo Lab to look at the real world challenges and apply the latest Gen AI to solve those challenges. So we started to engage several customers. And once we have some pilot project results, we will build solutions on top of the learnings and offer to a wider range of customers. So that's what this Gen AI IoT lab is about. And that's the initiative we started.
And where do you see the state of adoption today when it comes to IoT? Because the way I see this a little bit is you have these, let's say, Gen AI native startups that were born, basically 12 months ago, raised some money, and they are 100% focused on Gen AI. And then you have the 5-year-old, tech companies that are young and agile enough that they very quickly jumped on this. And maybe Soracom is, you're also, quite an agile company. So you're maybe in that class of organizations that a month in said, we have to be doing something here. But then you have, most of the economy, which is sitting in big traditional companies that have been around for 50 years. And they don't move quite as fast, right? I guess when they do move, they move big, but they don't move fast. And so where do you see them in terms of their, are they on the PPT phase? Are people, people are putting code down, but in very in kind of sandbox environments? Where do you see the larger operating companies today in terms of Gen AI adoption for IoT?
Yeah, we have a wide range of customers, and we have customers like Canon, Komatsu, and those large customers as well. And they are pretty fast considering their size. But you're right, some enterprise customers have more steps to move forward on new technology. So we are here to be glue between those fast-moving companies, including ourselves, and also the large enterprise. So that's one of the things that we do with our initiative with Matsuo Lab. We reach out to enterprise customers, including big ones. It's too early for me to mention names, but they have large amount of data and industry challenges. We apply our fast evolving smart connectivity platform and GenAI technologies together with Tokyo University and solve their challenges. So certainly we are accelerating innovations in the large enterprise corporations as well.
And what are the use cases that you see as the most likely to be early mover use cases? Is it on kind of back-end data, using Gen AI for data processing and internal processes where you don't have to maybe release anything into the world? There's maybe a little bit less liability there. Or is it on marketing processes and kind of customized interfaces with customers? Where do you see the larger companies taking their first steps when it comes to making use of Gen AI?
Yeah, the first use cases that we see is typically the data collected from sensors and the meters. We have customers, for example, who have collected the meta readings and sensor data in AWS cloud. So they already have data and then we can apply logic. And once we know how we can apply Gen AI or machine learning in general, we can apply that to the latest data coming in from the devices in the field. We also have a camera product that can be used to feed the video streaming video to cloud environment. And we have recently integrated with the Amazon Kinesis video stream service so that the customers can easily collect video data into AWS cloud and analyze using Gen AI and machine learning logics. And surprisingly, we have done some experiments and the latest GPT-4 engines can actually detect the objects and what's going on inside the image pretty well. Compared to traditional models, it actually works much better. So by using that camera feed and using Gen AI, you can actually detect what's going on in the field. So that is a new set of data that can be combined with the sensor data and create a new intelligence. That is a new front that we've been working with some of the fast-moving companies, and it will make the new innovation possible.
So that's an interesting use case because machine vision and then kind of interpreting images, this is something that has been relatively mature, or I'd say it's one of the kind of early mover use cases. But you said that the Gen AI can be superior to the more specialized software that people have been using. In which way? Is it a higher accuracy or is it superior in terms of its flexibility and ability, the ability to train it quickly or to give it directions kind of in a no-code way? Where is the performance superior there?
Yeah, when it comes to the Gen AI, the specialized machine learning logic for specific use cases, that will be there even if the Gen AI evolves, because it will be much lower cost to operate. And also once the good set of data is available and the training has been done, probably it's more accurate to apply to a specific use case that the model is built for. But when it comes to Gen AI, what is the advantage is the generic applicability, the low barrier to get started. The customers can just feed an image and detect what's going on and objects inside the image. So they can actually use it to get started on AI-based decision-making process. And once they know what they can do by using the streaming video feed and the machine learning or Gen AI-based analytics, they can work on the specific models based on that learning. Then, you can optimize the cost and the actual processing time and delay. So Gen AI enables much more wide range of customers and partners to get started on AI machine learning based solutions without collecting data or building model by themselves, and then move on to the next stage. So that's the definitely advantage I see in Gen AI.
Yeah, certain use cases, if you're trying to detect a scratch in a component where you probably have, you're replicating the same process 10,000 times a day and you have great data and so forth. And so that uses, but then if you're trying to figure out what's happening in this situation that might be interesting, that's something where Gen AI is much more agile. I think the interesting problems here that people are trying to figure out right now is what does the interface between Gen AI and us humans look like, right? It's fairly clear right now that we're not going to be going to 100% AI future for most tasks anytime soon, which is good for humanity. But in a lot of categories, you're going to have potentially significant efficiency improvements in having some kind of collaboration there. and it's a little bit unclear what that collaboration looks like. So how are you looking at this as a company, or how are you thinking through this with your clients in terms of determining for different use cases, what should the processes look like? Where does a person need to have a quality control element? Where do we also want to make sure that there's kind of, processes also, human communication matters. So there's actually an important element of having people communicate in certain processes, or having people informed and making sure that different people, maybe they're not doing a certain step in a process, but they need to be informed and they need to actually have maybe an understanding of what the output of that is in terms of the insights from a certain step in a process. So how are you thinking through this kind of coordination challenge between human and machine in the context of Gen AI?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's, such a new technology and everybody is trying to solve the challenges in quality control and how human should interact with the Gen AI or AI in general. At this moment, at this stage, I see, in a practical view of AI in IoT applications is, from my perspective, they can be a personal assistant or partner to think about how the AI can be applied to the IoT scenarios. We can't, just jump to a stage where AI look at the IoT data and then make decision by themselves. There needs to be a human involved and think about how the data can be applied together with based on the AI analytics and the work on it. So one scenario that I see is the data is fed into a cloud storage, and that human can actually do a big brainstorming with the AI agent to see, okay, we now have this sensor data, humidity, temperature, and we also have a machine image coming in from the cameras in the street. And we also have a totally different set of data coming in from another partner. So actually the human can do a chat-based interactions with a Gen AI to think about what can be done with this set of data. I did that kind of brainstorming a lot when I was a researcher, but I didn't really come up with a good example always. But by having Gen AI as a brainstorming partner, since it has learned from so many different language data and models, they can actually be a partner to think through an interesting use case based on that. And then actually try that use case by feeding the data to them and come up with a prototype. And then once we know what can be done with the data, you can train the model based on the collected data and create a more accurate and more efficient models and then apply to real world scenarios. Then, the quality control can be relatively easier than using the ever-changing LLM or looking at the data. So combining new generation Gen AI and the traditional machine learning makes sense for IoT scenarios. And Gen AI can open up the most thoughts and ideas for us to think about. That's how I see Gen AI today.
That's a great kind of typical scenario. I mean, we're in a process of rebranding right now, our company, and I was just today, I was kind of drawing up the plan for, okay, what do we have to do here? And I had a little bit of like, okay, I don't rebrand our company every month, right? Okay, this is the first time we're doing it after 8 years. And so, okay, what am I supposed to be doing here? So I got on ChatGPT and I asked, okay, make a case for this brand. Is this company name good or bad? And, argue from this perspective. And it gave me a very lucid argument of, here are the good aspects, here's the risks. And so this process it's a 100-step process to rebrand a company, and it's not going to do all of it, but it can really help you to get through some of these processes super quick. And then, of course, I need to start doing some logo design. Okay, what is our logo? And eventually I'll have a human finalize the logo. But for that first step of iteration, then, again, for free and very quickly, it can give me some concepts to work as a starting point and say, I like this, I don't like that. So I guess it's a similar process, although we're dealing with different jobs to be done. Now, in my workflow here, I was working with a few different, working with ChatGPT, working with different logo designers, so a couple different tools. What does this process look like for you? Do you have a dedicated Gen AI platform? Are you working in plugins with a bunch of different partners who each specialize in a different type? Because I guess the process you were just describing, there's probably behind the hood, I don't know, maybe there's one LLM, but then there's probably multiple specialized service providers who are kind of commercializing that LLM and making it more usable for different tasks. How do you fit in there? Are you one of those? Or are you a platform that allows your customers to link through to the right task provider?
Yeah, we are more a platform. We are testing and exploring different models and different providers for Gen AI. And we rather try to help customers make use of different engines through our platform. So we are not trying to lock down to specific platform or specific engine. We are currently exploring several different options. And you're right, Eric. I think the current stage, what makes sense is for our customers and users to use Gen AI as a assistant or partner to do brainstorming with the data they are collecting. Because of that, the first step that we took was what we call Soracom Harvest Data Intelligence. We have a feature to collect and store data that customers send through our connectivity platform. And we can actually make the visualized dashboard based on the data customers store. That was something we have been already offering before Gen AI came to the world. Now we added a button saying Ask AI, and we have some set up predefined questions. By just clicking a button, the customers can see there's some data insight, which could be something that they used to have to ask some professionals to do. So, for example, when you are collecting temperature, humidity, that type of time series data, Gen AI can point out, okay, here's the trend, and here's some outliers and things like that. So by taking that input and also asking some interactive questions, the customers can come up with a cool use case. And then they can potentially feed more different set of data and come up with another idea. So definitely there's a personal data analyst plus brainstorming partner that will help customers innovate their applications. So we are going to add more features so that the customers can make use of latest Gen AI without having to think about how to feed data into those platforms. We take care of that part so that customers can focus on the actual application of Gen AI or AI in general. That's where we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your colleague via email earlier provided a few notes, and I think there's a great example here of a company that's piloting using farming sensor data that reports on soil humidity to report basically that if the soil is dry, that's an indication that people nearby might need, they might need a Coke. So go fill up the vending machines, which is interesting because I always think that if you think about IoT data, data is this magical thing where you can provide incremental value to somebody else at almost zero cost. If maybe a little bit of processing cost, but almost zero, if you can find out who needs the data and you can get it to them in the right format. And so you can kind of have this stack of data where the primary use case is helping the farmer to, grow crops. But then that farmer might say, okay, well, this is solving my problem for keeping my fields healthy. But how can I further monetize this data? Maybe Coca-Cola wants to, have access to the data because then, they can be more efficient in terms of their distribution in the region. And I can make an extra, $5,000 a year on, selling my data to them. And maybe somebody else can also find some use in this data, and so there I can add another $2,000. And so you have this potential stack of value, but only if you can actually connect the dots. And that's the trick. And I think there's a lot of value kind of left on the table. So what you're describing in terms of this kind of ideation and also this automating some of these processes will hopefully reduce the friction there because, of course, the reason that a lot of these dots haven't been connected is that they require human labor, and that in itself is expensive and rare, right? So there's a certain degree of friction there.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely the things that we are exploring as well. The IoT has evolved, and we have so many customers on our platform each one is doing a lot of innovative things in their domain or their own business. So we are kind of having lots of intranet of things, the sensors and servers are connected within their organization, which is already great. But the true vision of IoT is more about connecting those data and things in different domains and interact with each other. That will enable use cases and examples that you just mentioned, like using soil sensor data for the vending machines and businesses. So to achieve that, maybe some genius can think about, okay, this data and that data can actually be combined and generate value. But you can't always use time or the expertise like that or thinking about their data and their businesses. So that's why I think Gen AI is going to be a enabler for thinking about true IoT use cases. So you can actually do a brainstorming and provide data and to see some of the interesting insight getting out of the data. And if you do that, you can think of the different use cases, and then the data from vending machine may be useful for completely different things. And then the value can be something that delivered through a platform like ours from one customer to another or one partner to another. That's the future we are thinking of and we have envisioned, and we are doing developments around that too.
You mentioned earlier that you are kind of agnostic, or that you're working with different LLMs. I guess most of the LLMs today are, they're based out of the US. Outside of the US, have you found any interesting models to work with in specific areas or for geographies? I guess China has kind of its own ecosystem because of the firewall and so forth. So you kind of have, maybe have to work with local LLMs here. That's not really the case maybe in Japan or India, but there might also be other reasons to work with local models that are better trained on the local language, for example. But have you found situations outside of the US where there's LLMs that you think are particularly good at particular problems or in particular languages?
For generic challenges and generic issues, I think the OpenAI and the models coming from the US are superior, and we always use them as the kind of latest technology so that we can explore what we can do in the future. But you're right, when it comes to some local language specific questions, answer, and interactions, some models trained by local organization are sometimes scoring better and provide more natural response to customer inquiries. So because of that, we are not limiting ourselves to one particular model or the service platform. We are rather trying to apply different use cases, different models to different use cases and see what is more applicable. So right now, we are offering this public beta feature for using Gen AI for IoT data. But in the future, I think we will provide an option to use different models for different use cases. And that will also be important for quality control as well. As we touched upon this topic earlier, as the model evolves, Gen AI gives different response, and it's not always consistent. So sometimes we need to lock down models to specific version or specific platform when we use the public-facing features. So that is something we are actively discussing, how we can achieve these stable, predictable answers to particular use case. At the same time, we are exploring new latest models. So certainly it's a hot topic right now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this evolves, because I guess governments around the world are probably thinking very carefully about what models they want to be dominant in their own, at least the larger economies, right? Or I think it's great for the US. It's a little bit scary, I think, for everybody else in the world right now, looking at how this technology might evolve and what their role might be in it. Great. So maybe to round out the conversation, since you have this IoT and Gen AI lab running, and you're running a number of pilots through that, can you give us, a few hints, a few best practices on how to move as efficiently as possible through that process of saying, okay, we want to do something. What is going to be our process to, generate ideas, do some coding, test them in the real world, get feedback, iterate, and ideally get something out into the market or into our internal operations as quickly as possible. Because this is probabilistic, there's a little bit of a higher risk profile than there is with deterministic technologies. So basically, how do we go through that process and kind of reduce that risk so that the guys that are making the business decisions are comfortable then taking, kind of putting money behind this and putting parts of their operations into Gen AI?
Yeah, one thing that we learned is that this technology evolves so fast. A month old knowledge is already too old to apply to today. It's important not to say, okay, Gen AI is good at this and not so good at that. I actually talk with my engineering team. Let's not say this is it. This is where we can apply the technology. We should always explore and kind of think beyond what is available today, so that once the Gen AI, the technology evolves to this point, we can already think about this scenario and use case. That's the mentality we should have for the fast evolving technology like this one. And also that means the answer that we expect today may change in the future. So you're right. When it comes to drawing conclusions from the Gen AI today, especially for some business and management perspectives, you would have to make sure that the answer is correct. Or there needs to be a human involvement for decision making at this moment, because there can be hallucination and some wrong answer based on probabilities, the model. So today you can't 100% take actions based on the output of Gen AI. When it comes to deterministic actions, you would have to involve human or maybe build a specific models for that use case that has more accuracy. So those are the things definitely you might have to consider. But even so, it's so exciting to try different technology and think about new use cases based on what is available today and what will be available in a month or two. So we are in an exciting stage, even for industrial IoT as well.
Yeah, and it's such an exciting technology because it's so bottom up, right? A lot of IT solutions are necessarily a little bit top down, right? Mm-hmm. Just because of the way they're architected, and and here, if you can isolate a step in a process, just one step, maybe in a 10-step process, then you can get really creative in terms of thinking through how to do that. It's just a very fun technology. I think that's really what's caught humanity's it's just maybe other technologies that are, at least in the short term, as powerful or have as much influence. But this is just such a delight to play with, right? That really captures your imagination. Cool. Kenta, anything that we haven't touched on that's important for folks to understand?
Maybe one thing to add is that we are evolving our platform based on customer feedback and learnings from our customers. So if the listener has some challenges in IoT or any kind of real world problems, we are here to help. Connecting devices to cloud is our specialty. But on top of that, we have been offering, so many different features, including data storage and Gen AI applications. So we are here to innovate together and to achieve the truly connected world together with our customers and partners is the thing that we want to achieve. So if the listener has some challenges, we are happy to talk with you and innovate together. So
yeah, fantastic. What's the best way for people to reach out? Is there a specific website or email address, or should they just get in touch with kind of the general through the contact page on your website?
Yeah, of course. We have a website, www.soracom.io. That's our website, and you can actually interact through our the chat interface. We are on all the major social network services, including LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. So whatever channel that you are comfortable with, you can reach out to us.
Kenta, thanks for taking time to join us on the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Erik. I enjoyed a lot talking with you.